Welcome to the Buck Stops here, the official podcast of NotInHallOfFame.com, and I'm your host, the Buck, Kirk Buchner, owner, operator of NotInHallOfFame.com, and hey, check out the sister sites, the Fictitious Athlete Hall of Fame and the Fictitious Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's Season 1, Episode 8 of the Hall of Fame show, and what we do always is look at the various Halls of Fame and the news that surrounds them. The Pro Football Hall of Fame has announced that there's going to be two different classes, one for the Centennial Slate and then one for the regular group. A few thoughts on that. I wonder if it's sort of like creating a B team. Evan Nolan, who's back with us, has a different perspective on that. We also look at Darren Sproles, who on TMZ said that he is a Hall of Famer. Is he? A lot of people said that he's not almost right away, but I think he's got a better case than maybe you would initially think. The Bella Twins are going to the WWE Hall of Fame. We touched on that last week, but it's now made official since we last spoke. In baseball, Curt Flood is getting a little bit of a push from Congress to get into the Baseball Hall of Fame. For those of you who don't know who Curt Flood is, we'll sort of explain why his case is actually a lot bigger than you'd think. And finally, we touched a little bit on the world of hockey. New York Post article talked about how there should be teams in the Hockey Hall of Fame. Evan and I don't agree with that, but as always, it sort of goes into interesting discussions. And also, as always, we go onto tangents that have absolutely nothing to do with the world of sports. Without further ado, it's episode 8, and here's Evan Nolan. Mr. Nolan, how are you, sir?
I'm a little tired, but I'm doing pretty well. My Dungeons and Dragons thing from last week, it was absolutely one of the coolest experiences I've ever had. It was like 3,600 people who were geeking out on the same thing in the same room. We all violated that PCU. Do you remember the movie PCU?
God, yeah.
Back in the day?
Yeah, shit. That was before Jeremy Piven got his hairpiece.
Yeah, that was Jeremy Piven was the young troublemaker, and then like 4 years later, here's the dean in old school. But anyway, they had that line in PCU saying, "Don't be that guy. Don't wear the T-shirt of the band you're going to go see." That was clearly in violation because everybody was either in cosplay or wearing the T-shirt of the D&D group. But it was fabulous, except for the fact the theater apparently had never sold out before, and it took us like 2 hours to get into the theater. Fortunately, everyone in the show held it for us, but it was fantastic. If albeit cold, it was like 20 degrees outside while we were waiting. But it was pretty amazing. But I got home at 3:30 in the morning, so I'm pretty goddamn tired. Other than that, I'm fine. How are you?
It's 20 degrees in Chicago, so if it was minus 20, that means Jussie Smollett would be attacked.
Oh, man. We're starting already. All right, go ahead. How are you doing?
Well, no, for me, it's pretty much the same old. Life in the tropics. I'm going to enjoy it while it lasts because I don't know how much longer it's going to be that way. I have a feeling it'll be back. It's probably another 12 months and then back to Canada or maybe in your neck of the woods. Anywhere where there's a Fairmont, it's possible. Wow.
Well, you'll get to enjoy our political process in that case. So congratulations on that.
Yeah, I'm sort of happy to sort of enjoy it as an observer, although I'd never be a participant because I'll always remain a Canadian citizen. But yeah, just watching it from this angle, that's enough.
Yeah, I've always voted, but I've always been a bit of an observer too because I've never lived in a place where my vote is counted. Because I've lived in Massachusetts, Washington D.C., and Illinois. So regardless as a Republican or a Democrat, my vote didn't make any determination who's going to win or who is going to get the electoral votes for president.
Yeah,
I've been part of the process, but my vote has never really meant anything.
Yeah,
so.
But the one thing, though, that U.S. politics has over Canadian politics, you can at least vote for many different things. In Canada, you're voting for your member of parliament, which is the same as your prime minister. You can't separate the two.
Right.
So at least you can say your vote counted in a lot of other ways. In Canada, you can't do that at all. So that's one thing you've got on us by a wide margin.
All right. Well, Yeah, I still would like a less insane political process, but what are you going to do?
What are you going to do? But, it's funny. So last week, we were wondering what we were going to talk about, and, I keep finding things.
Mm-hmm.
And so actually there's a bit of stuff going on with the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So they've announced that there's going to be 2 ceremonies, one for the regular one for the regular class, and then one later in mid-September, which kind of makes it feel like the B team, and that's for the Centennial class. I don't know how I feel about this. I was reading one article in a Philadelphia publication or Philadelphia paper online, where they're pretty much saying how they feel like Harold Carmichael was getting disrespected, and I don't know that they're necessarily wrong. I don't see why they can't do it all in one big ceremony. Am I wrong here?
But I think they were always talking about doing 2 ceremonies, though. I think the difference is we thought they were doing 2 ceremonies on 2 consecutive days before, because they were always separating the 2 of them out. It's what I think is weirder about this one, and I understand the argument with Carmichael and them being disrespected, but they're having a big 100th anniversary celebration on that date. So that's going to be part of that 100th anniversary celebration, which makes sense if you're doing the 100th anniversary class, right? But what weirder to me is that they're not doing it 5 and 15. They're doing it 10 and 10. So the 5 modern candidates got elected, and then they're going to do the 2 coaches and the 3 contributors on that first day, and then the 10 players on the second day.
That one I kind of understood, because I figured that's why they were not going to separate Cower and Johnson on that.
Right, but I mean, for back to your conspiracy theory about that they only put Cower and Johnson in because they were on TV, it makes them seem like they have more favored nation status again in this situation. It feels weird to have. If it was the 5 and the 15, I think it would feel less weird to people than 10 and 10, and separating it out so the 2 people who people had issue with getting in early are still getting in with the normal Hall of Fame festivities. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. Yeah, so maybe it's just a bit that I kind of wish they would do this all in one thing, and I get why they're doing it. I still wish it would all be in one big thing, because they're all Hall of Famers. But right. I'm nitpicking.
Yeah, but I mean, if they'd done it in a weekend, because doing 20 in a day is a lot. Let's be honest. But if they did 10 and 10 over the course of a weekend, I don't think anybody's going to be that upset about that. But just doing 10 one weekend and 10 another weekend is the basis for making it seem like it's a B team.
Well, it also gives them a chance to sell more tickets.
Oh, and that's something they need. So
not as much as the Basketball Hall of Fame, but revenue is revenue.
Well, true. That is true. Yeah. Well, I mean, the NFL definitely needs to sell more tickets, seeing as they're going to add that 17th game, apparently, and a playoff game that nobody wants. So,
yeah, I hope. I'm sure that's going to go through the players' union. I wish it doesn't. I like it just the way it is, but why listen to the fans?
I mean, who didn't really want that Steelers team in the playoffs this year? I mean, that Steelers team was just Josh Dobbs was, just the quarterback we all needed to see in a playoff game against Mahomes and the Chiefs.
Well, isn't that the same team that once had Bubby Brister in a playoff game?
I'm sure. I don't remember Bubby Brister specifically being in a playoff game, but yes, he's not even close to the worst quarterback I can remember in a playoff game. The Houston Texans in multiple years started T.J. Yates. They start Brock Osweiler. They had some terrible QBs who brought them to the playoffs as well. There was that one a couple years ago. Was it T.J. Yates or Osweiler? I can't remember. Against Connor Cook, who was the Raiders QB.
But they're not named Bubby. Game. They don't have the name of Bubby.
Okay. I don't know. I mean, Bubby's a tough name, true. But, yeah. I think I'd take Bubby Brister over Brock Osweiler as a quarterback, though.
You're probably right. But yeah, and dropping that 4th preseason game, that's going to make a difference to the player's health. But
It's going to make a difference to the guys who are like on the edges of the team, but I mean, not a ton. So,
well, if the XFL survives, there you go. There's your minor system.
yeah, well, they need quarterbacks. But the XFL, I've watched a few games. Just the quarterback play is so atrocious, which is understandable because there's a lot of atrocious quarterback play in the NFL too. And if you're in a minor league, you're with people who can't make the NFL, they're going to be worse. But that I think is going to be the biggest problem that league has.
So yeah, we may not even get to that XFL Hall of Fame. We'll see.
If they do, it'll be interesting who McMahon decides to get in. So
I'm trying to, So in the Centennial class, we'll have Tommy Maddox.
Oh, there we go. That would be nice.
And Rod Smart. Although
he hate me.
He hate me. Although the one thing though the XFL did, I mean, it did sort of. When you notice, like baseball does that weekend every year now, where they got the colorful nicknames on the back.
Right. Yeah, they have the nicknames on the back as a way to think, oh, hey, we're promoting our players, because nobody does a worse job promoting their players than MLB, which is saying something. But yeah, that was interesting. The other thing that came out of the XFL is that SkyCam.
Yes.
That SkyCam's been an awesome invention.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
But the XFL also is a chance for the league to try out what something would look like. So some of the rules of the XFL with a 1-point, 2-point, 3-point plays, I don't think is going to catch on the NFL, but it's at least a way to see what it looks like. And see how it works in real life and have some real data on it. But like all things like that, that's a great thing for a minor league to try out. Mm-hmm. So,
no, and it's actually a lot more enjoyable than the first incarnation, which shows how old I am that I remember the first incarnation.
I remember it as well. I was in college at the time, so.
Oh my God! Sticking with the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So on TMZ about a week ago. Someone I never really thought of as a potential Hall of Famer says that he is, although he's pretty humble about it. So he wasn't coming out and bragging about it. To their defense, I mean it's guerrilla reporting by TMZ. So like, hey, are you a Hall of Famer? Well, I think I am, but it's up to everyone else to decide. And that was Darren Sproles.
Yeah, I mean, Sproles' main argument is the fact he's fifth all-time in all-purpose yards in NFL history. He only led the league once, I think back in 2011 with the Saints. He led the league in all-purpose yards. But overall, I mean, he's fifth all-time, and the guys in front of him, 3 of the 4 are Hall of Famers. It's Jerry Rice, Walter Payton, and Emmitt Smith. The other one, who's actually second all-time in yards in NFL history, is Brian Mitchell. And he hasn't sniffed the Hall of Fame and has had a few legal troubles, so that may make it a little difficult for him. But it's an interesting argument, at least. If you're in the top 5 in NFL history in a major statistical category now, I don't know if you've actually gone through, well, I know you do awards, but how important it is to be a yards leader. But if you're around long enough to do that, you're at least going to have an argument, right?
I would think so. And one thing that I sort of like about Sproles as opposed to Mitchell or other returners, Sproles' yards from scrimmage is over 8,000. So that's not a bad amount. I mean, I know numbers are inflated more than they used to be. But in terms of when you look at some of these great returners, they weren't putting up those YFS yards like Sproles did.
Well, I mean, someone who's coming up, I don't know if it's not next year, I think it's the year after, is Devin Hester, who's going to be eligible for the first time. And around here in Chicago, they're all convinced he's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Not even close.
I understand. I'm just telling you what they're saying right now on the radio around here. Yeah, Billy White Shoes Johnson isn't in. I have trouble seeing Hester get in, but anyway, but Hester is a completely one-dimensional player. He couldn't catch. Well, they couldn't get him to run a route the correct way. They ran a few sweeps and stuff for him, but he was just dynamic. You punt him a football, kick him a football, he was completely dynamic. Sproles is what Hester wishes he could be. I mean, Hester was a better returner than Sproles. Sproles was still a hell of a returner, but he couldn't do anything else. Hester couldn't do anything else. Sproles could do absolutely everything and do absolutely everything well. And he did it for not just one team, but he did it he had three major parts of his career in San Diego, New Orleans, and Philly. So he wasn't a system guy. He was a guy who had made an impact on a whole bunch of teams. And honestly, he was a guy, if you were in a PPR league for fantasy football, he was a guy you definitely wanted on your team.
Yeah.
And you played him every week because he put up points. I don't know. We're getting into an interesting point with fantasy football and whether that makes any difference in people's opinions of players. Because once we start getting some younger folks in there on the voting committee, a lot of the Peter King generation of guys is fading out here. King himself says he's probably going to not be voting on Pro Football Hall in like 5 years. So we're going to have a big switch over, and it's going to be interesting to see how things like fantasy football are going to influence people's decisions when it comes to voting. Yeah, and if they do, that's something that will help him out.
Yeah, and I'm of the belief that it shouldn't be factored in, because I think there's a lot of people who look at fantasy football stats and then just assume that a player is better than they are or worse than they are because of that. Having said that,
right.
With Sproles, I'll go back to that, the 8,000 plus yards from scrimmage, but also the fact that when he did set that set that mark with the Saints, that's currently the single season record. So there's a lot of talking like who's got the most rushing yards, who's got the most receiving yards in a season. Well, this is the most yards, period, and it doesn't get enough play.
Right.
It just never does. I never understood it.
No, it doesn't make sense. It seems like you're trying to gain as many yards as possible. If you have somebody who can do it multiple ways, why are you discounting it just because he's doing it multiple ways?
Mm-hmm. And especially with the way things are on kickoffs now, that might be a pretty hard mark. Not impossible. But that's going to be a hard one to catch.
Yeah, that is true. I'm just looking at the other people here on the list below him. How do you feel about Frank Gore, by the way?
Ooh, man, that
because Frank Gore is seventh on the all-time list.
Frank Gore,
and he's third in rushing yards.
The ultimate compiler. He's going to be someone who's going to get in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, but what'll always sort of be a struggle for him is every time he's there, no matter he'll always make that finalist list, but it'll be so easy to come up with 5 players who are also finalists who are better than him.
Mm. How about Steve Smith, who's 9th on this list? He's up for the first time. Oh no, he retired in 16, so he'll be up for the first time 2 years from now.
I feel stronger about Frank Gore than Steve Smith. But
interesting.
Yeah, although because there's just something. I mean, I do respect the hell out of Frank Gore's longevity. Having said that, has there ever been a point where you ever thought that Frank Gore was among the top 6, 7 running backs in the league? I don't think I ever did.
Yeah, there might have been a time, but it didn't officially spring to mind until he ended up in Buffalo this year. And I looked at it he's in the division for the first time. And I looked at his yards. I'm like, holy crap, when did he get there? Mm-hmm. It was kind of amazing. But yeah, he was out in San Francisco for a long time, and the San Francisco teams. Well, he was there with the Super Bowl year, but a lot of those teams were particularly good. So it was he kind of got lost over on the East Coast. But yeah, he never really was like, hey, he's definitely a first ballot Hall of Famer. That never occurred to me at all. So.
Yeah, having said that, I'd rather have Steve Smith on my team if that makes any sense. But I think Frank Gore has the better Hall of Fame shot.
Yeah, I mean that may be true. The last one, just by the way, the top 15 or top 14 here is Herschel Walker. You think he'll ever have a shot?
No, but he should.
I mean, he's most famous for a trade that launched the Cowboys dynasty, which is definitely not his fault.
No, of course not. But that's the other thing too. I don't think we've ever talked about this ever. It's the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It's not necessarily, nor does it say it's the NFL Hall of Fame. If Herschel Walker doesn't go into the USFL and spend the first 3 years of his career for the New Jersey Generals, are we talking about him as a Hall of Famer? And I can't discount when I talk about Herschel Walker what he did in the USFL.
That's interesting because that literally never gets brought up. Because I remember, both Jim Kelly and Warren Moon were QBs in the USFL, and I remember highlight tapes of their time in the USFL as their part of their highlight package when they got in the Hall. That was an important part of their careers. But you're right, Herschel Walker it's almost evaporated. You think of him as the guy the Cowboys traded, and anything before that was kind of irrelevant.
Yeah, because his first, what did he do? I think it was I gotta look that up. It's something like 2,500 yards or something. Something sick.
Wow.
So let's look that up here while we're sort of going through that. But yeah, because that's somebody who I think is getting a real and actually it's funny you bring that up. First thing I type up Herschel Walker, the first word that comes up is trade.
Mm-hmm. Of course it is. Because that's the first thing anyone thinks of.
Let's see. Over the course of his USFL career, Walker had 5,562 rushing yards. And that was for 3 years. So let's say that league is, 70% as good. So then that would have been, let's say you add 3,500 yards to his total. So that would have put him at 11.5.
Yeah, and then we're over 10,000. There we are.
Right.
He's 11.5, and if you put another 3,500 yards on his all-time yardage thing, he ends up ahead of Sproles and Emmitt Smith. He ends up at fourth with another 3,500 yards.
Plus whatever
not counting in the receiving or anything like that.
Yeah. Plus whatever he would have done receiving. So for that, that's just something where he gets just completely obliterated when it comes to historical context.
Yeah. It was an interesting name when I was looking at that all-time yards list. So you can go all the way down and get real in the weeds with Tiki Barber and Wes Welker and other interesting people further down. But yeah, Herschel Walker was just the last one. I was like, that's actually an interesting case that I've never really heard anyone debate.
Oh, okay. So here I'm looking at it. So I was slightly wrong. I thought he had 2,500 yards in his rookie year. It was 24-11 in his third and final year of the USFL. Now, granted, at that point, I'm sure that that was when the league was dying. But still, if you're sort of taking some of that in consideration, he also got another. So here's his USFL receiving, 1,484 yards.
That's a lot of yards. There you go. So give him 70% of that. It's called another 1,000. So now we're adding 4,500 to everything. And with 4,500, he moves up into third. Jerry Rice, Brian Mitchell, Herschel Walker, Walter Payton, Emmitt Smith. So, yeah, those 3 years probably killed him, and the trade, and not just the trade. The Cowboys being so successful after the trade. And the Vikings being the Vikings.
And, they never held that against Eric Lindros in hockey.
No, they didn't hold that against Eric Lindros in hockey. But Eric Lindros was supposed to be the greatest thing ever. And his career was ended early by concussions. So he gets a little bit of the hype on the front end and the sympathy on the back end, whereas Walker gets ignored on the front end and remembered for something that had nothing to do with him on the back end. So it's a little bit different context in those two situations.
Yeah, so then that's one thing that I wish sort of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, because I'm trying to even remember, because it's been a while since I've been there, if they've even got something that acknowledges the USFL in the building. I think they do.
I was there. I was there when I was dating my girlfriend before my wife, so that was 2005. So it's been a while since I've been there.
I'm trying to remember. If I can't remember, it's either not there or it's not very big.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's sort of my take on that. I think Herschel Walker's sort of like the most. I don't want to say misunderstood. That's not the word I'm looking for. Is someone whose full resume is just left out.
Right.
Where maybe a bit of Sam Mills too, but not nearly to that degree. But Sam Mills became a finalist.
Yeah. He did become a finalist this year, so I don't know if he'll ever get through, but he's at least there, which is more than you can say for a lot of people. So you can't get in if you're not a finalist.
This is true. As Wayne Gretzky always said, he missed every shot he never took. Of course, that's how it comes off in print. When you hear him talk, it's like, it's like you take a shot, and then it's like. You put the puck in the net, and if I don't take the puck and shoot, then it's not going to go in the goal, and there's no I in team.
But there's a me.
There is. That's my impression actually of every Canadian hockey player.
Mm.
They're all pretty much the same impression.
It was convincing.
Thanks. I really nailed that one. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is about hockey players. Like great people, a lot of fun, but as soon as you put a camera in front of them, my God, they lose 100 IQ points and 1,000 points of being interesting.
Right.
That's why I love the NBA. They just don't care.
That is true. They do not.
That's why I love
it. I mean the whole Greek freak beard rivalry that's going right now. I don't know if you saw that
Team
over
Giannis.
Twitter the last couple of days. It's kind of hilarious.
I'm Team Giannis because he actually has heard of defense.
Yeah, I am too. But I did watch the draft for the NBA All-Star team, and I did think that was funny. It's like, I need someone who plays defense, and so he did pick the beard. And so that was kind of a funny diss. So yeah, and just the idea that Giannis somehow isn't good at basketball because he's taller than Harden is kind of dumb. So Sean Bradley was also very tall, and that did not help him.
Sean Bradley, probably the worst cast of the Monstars.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I still watch that back. It's like, okay, you really took his talent. What talent?
Yeah. He was tall. I mean, George Murasod should have, George Murasod already looked like a monster. So.
Wasn't he in that film with Billy Crystal?
Was that My Giant?
Yes.
Was that in that one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think he was even in some deodorant commercial or something.
Well, good for him. I hope. Yeah, it was just a missed casting opportunity. So, speaking of people who don't, by the way, get mentioned much for the Hall of Fame. Did you said something about Congress was pushing somebody this week for the baseball?
Yeah, for baseball, somebody who I'm really, really big on, especially if we look at the word fame. So Congress, I don't know if this is accurate. That seemed a little bit high from what I was reading. It said that 102 members of Congress. I can't imagine them getting 102 members of Congress to agree on anything. But no, okay, I don't know. Where they were signing something for Curt Flood to be considered for the Baseball Hall of Fame because that era's committee's coming up.
Right. And the basis for Curt Flood, honestly, is the labor relations impact more than anything else, and the standing up for.
Right.
Basically, it was his case, even though he lost it, that forced the Major League Baseball into free agency. It basically created free agency throughout sports. And Marvin Miller finally got in posthumously this year. Marvin Miller, of course, the lawyer who destroyed Hall of Famer Buick Kuhn because Buick Kuhn was a commissioner. And as you know, the bar for commissioners is actually underground in order to get in to any Hall of Fame.
That's so true.
But with Marvin Miller getting in, it makes sense for Flood, who was the actual player who was willing to stand up and say, I'm not getting traded to Philadelphia, forget this, to go in. But I mean, in terms of numbers, I don't really think there's much of an argument. But in terms of impact, that's where you're coming in with Hall of Fame for him.
Huge, and I think if he doesn't get in at some point in time, he's somebody who I think they should really have, or at least the union should come up with some kind of award in his honor.
Yeah,
and I'm sure
it's coming up. It's got to be coming up on 50 years since he did this, right?
Let's see, yeah, because it was December '69 where he refused the trade.
Okay, so we're already over 50 years.
Yeah. So I mean, at that point, I mean, there should be something honored by the union. Why they haven't done that, I think, is a bigger travesty than Curt Flood not being in the Hall of Fame. Every time somebody signs a free agent deal, they should be on their knees thanking Curt Flood.
Agreed.
And not just a baseball player. All free agents.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just I and again, that's the basis for Floyd, because if you're looking at like the similarity scores and stuff, he's according to WAR, he's the 43rd best center fielder. The people who he's similar to batters are Jimmy Pearsall, Gary Maddox, Lou Piniella as a baseball player, Dave Martinez, the awesomely named Whitey Lockman. Like, none of those guys are Hall of Famers. Randy Wynn. So he's again, WAR's not the be all end all, but just in terms of the company you keep in that sort of area, none of those players are people who we putting in the Hall. So just solely based off of overall performance, he's a 293 hitter. He hit like 85 homers in 13 seasons, had like 600 some odd RBIs. It's just not there. But his impact is on sports in general. The whole sports landscape of the country is completely undeniable.
Right, and that's why I think he's not going to, even if they do sort of nominate him, put him on that list, I don't see him getting through. But again, I'm sort of imploring the union to come up with some kind of award. I don't know, something involving selfless acts, or I know they already do. What's the baseball word for philanthropy?
The baseball word for philanthropy?
Yeah, like their version of the Walter Payton Award, or is there one?
Oh, that's a good question. Let's look that up. Baseball's version.
I mean, there may not be. I should know this, but I don't.
That was an unhelpful search.
I mean, I almost want to think it's the Roberto Clemente.
Yeah. The Marvin Miller Man of the Year Award is given for outstanding on-field performance.
Okay, so there should be. What's another award? At this point, or hell, it could even be something internally. Give it to the player who signed the most overrated or overpriced contract, and completely didn't deliver. You can almost rename it to the Mike Hampton or something.
The Bobby Bonilla.
Bobby Bonilla, yes. Well, he already has a day. Paid. He has his own day. He doesn't need an award.
That is true. June 1st, every year, Bobby Bonilla Day.
Isn't it July 1st?
What?
Isn't it July 1st, or is it June 1st?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's July. You're right. It is July 1st. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, it's because I'm a Canadian. It's either Canada Day or Bobby Bonilla Day.
Yeah, I don't know how much. There aren't that many more Bobby Bonilla days left, though. I think he's down. Yeah, I think he's under 10 now. It just means we're old. He gets paid $1.19 million every July 1st through 2035. Oh no, we still got 15 more years of Bobby Bonilla days.
I think let's for the 2020 recipient of the Curt Flood Award is Bobby Bonilla.
There we go. Absolutely.
Yeah. So Major League Union, if you won't do something, we will.
We could go cross sports with it too.
Oh, we really could.
So.
Except in football, except in football where nothing's guaranteed.
That's true. That is true. But yeah, there's some head-scratching contracts out there still, even in sports that have salary caps. Although I don't know, did you see the big news in football announcing today with the Tony Romo getting $17 million a year?
Yeah,
to be a commentator.
Well, hey, if you can get it. I mean, I do think he's a great commentator. I don't know that any commentator is worth $17 million when you're not broadcasting all that much, but hey.
I mean, but they paid $1.03 billion for the rights for next year. So when you look at it that way, $17 million for a commentator is basically your marketing budget, which is essentially what the commentator's being anyway. So.
And people now like Tony Romo.
Yeah, I feel he's definitely more popular as a announcer than he ever was as a player. But
he was a good player who just was a little misunderstood. Got a crappy label. Dating Jessica Simpson didn't help him at one point in time. Also
dropping extra point holds also didn't help either.
It did not. But I always thought he was a better player than he got credit for.
Probably true.
Yeah. Of course, we're not getting a bust in there for Canton Bay, but you know what? Maybe he'll make it in as a broadcaster.
He very well may. Who knows? But hey, as Bob Uecker said, Bob Uecker, career 211 hitter, when he got in the Hall of Fame with the broadcast award for baseball, said that he was always upset he didn't get in as a player first. So.
Well, he also said too a few times if he was any good, then he wouldn't have a career. If he was like a 250 hitter, he just wouldn't be the same guy.
Right, exactly.
So got a couple other things I wanted to sort of like bounce off you. One, I don't expect too much because it's a wrestling thing. The Bella Twins, they're going to the WWE Hall of Fame before the men that they dated, John Cena and Daniel Bryan. Thoughts, or we don't really care too much? It does. I'm a wrestling fan, and I don't care.
We sort of talked about it last week.
Yep.
You were anticipating this happening. The other two guys are still fairly active within the WWE, aren't they? Cena's not become a movie star, but there's the possibility he could come back in. And Daniel Bryan, he was active at least a couple years ago. So I watch Royal Rumbles every year, so I know he was in that a few years ago. But he's not more than. Is he still going, or did he go to another league?
No, he's still going. Cena is apparently going to be at WrestleMania.
Yeah, so if they're still going, they can't necessarily put them in. But the Bella Twins apparently are not still going?
They're not, no. It doesn't look, but then they can always come back. They've had people who were retired and then came back for, actually the current champion right now is a Hall of Famer, and Bill Goldberg.
Yeah, I saw that.
So
57-year-old Goldberg.
Yeah, who wrestles 3-minute matches and he can't do any of it. Looks fantastic, but he can barely move.
Mm-hmm.
Says me, who can barely do anything. But that's another story, and I'm not paid to do it.
True.
But I thought this was sort of the biggest news, really, of the week, or it's going to be. Maybe not here, but it will be down the road. The English Premier League will be doing a Hall of Fame. They're going to put 2 people in this year. We don't know who they are. But there's actually going to be an EPL Hall of Fame.
Well, let's play the game. I'm a relative newcomer to the EPL, but I know a little bit of the history. How into EPL are you?
I'm probably a little bit behind you. Now that I live in the Caribbean, it's a far more bigger soccer country, and a lot of people here follow the EPL. I'm now available to sort of watch it on Saturday and Sunday mornings, whereas years before I wasn't.
Yeah, I used to watch EPL whenever it was on, and it's on a lot more than it used to be when we were younger. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot easier to see the games. But the year that really got me into it was Leicester. It was that 2015 running to the championship out of nowhere. And so the only international soccer team before that I truly cared about was River Plate in Argentina because I lived down there. I went to games. I love the team. I actually used to get El Gráfico, which is the Argentine soccer newspaper, sent to me in Massachusetts for years. So I care a lot about River Plate. But EPL was more, hey, it's fun to watch. They're really good games, but I don't really feel anything except a deep hatred for Chelsea. And now, I'm an unabashed Leicester fan. I hope they do well and everything. And the fact they're up in third this year makes me feel pretty happy about everything. So I've been really in on EPL for 5 years now, and it's going to be interesting. I think do you have any inklings of who you think the two people are going to be? Because I have two, from what I can tell, leading candidates. But there's at least debate as to who they should be. Do you have anyone in mind?
Well, I mean, I just know who's been the most popular, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're the best. Because I feel like I'm too much of a novice to really sort of go beyond thinking of Beckham and Rooney. But I'm thinking that can't be, that there's people I'm just glossing right over, and I know that there are. But those are the two. Whenever I think of soccer in the last 15 years in England, those are the two names that I think of. First and second.
I don't think Rooney maybe is a. I mean, if they're going to do two if they're going to do two every year, let's just say they did that. I don't think that's what they're necessarily going to do, but let's just say they did two every year. I think it would take Rooney 5 to 6 years to get in, and I don't know how long it would take Beckham to get in. I think the most obvious person clearly, and the best class, as I'm kind of looking at it, that they could do is the number one for me has to be Alan Shearer. He's the all-time goals leader in EPL history. He's 52 ahead of second place. So it's basically putting the all-time. It's like you're starting a new Hall of Fame in hockey. You start with Wayne Gretzky. I'm not sure he's necessarily the best player, but he's the guy who has all the points and all the goals and everything else. It's the same thing, I think, with this EPL. I think Alan Shearer has to be one of them. The second one, you can make arguments for John Terry. You can make an argument for Eric Cantona. But I think Thierry Henry is the second one who I would probably put in out there. And I also think it would be good having, with the way the EPL is developed, having someone who is a native-born English player and someone who's not native-born English player, preferably of a non-white background. Does that make sense?
It does. It does.
In terms of just making a statement with how racially charged British soccer was for quite a while, or English soccer was for quite a while.
In their press release, they were very specific that they would be honoring accomplishments in just the EPL, and they made a sentence. And I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember exactly what it said, but just for basically domestic and international players. So that's clearly on their radar, or at least that's the image they want to put out. So, yeah, I mean, I think that would certainly make sense. No matter what happens, there's going to be a lot of people debating that. I was reading a couple articles where there's some people who are upset about it because they're saying it's going to take away from the English Soccer Hall of Fame. Competition's perfectly fine. I don't see why that would be an issue. There's a U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame. It doesn't take anything away from the Hockey Hall of Fame. And
I mean, there's the Songwriters Hall of Fame and the Rock Hall. Those are two completely separate things.
Right.
So,
I mean, at the end of the day, if you do a good job with your hall and you're transparent and you put attractions which make people want to go, you're going to do well. One of the best run ones that I'm seeing lately is the Country Music Hall of Fame. They're working really hard on bringing exhibits. They're always promoting it. They're always talking about it. I can't say that I've paid a whole lot of attention as to who should be in. It's not really my genre or cup of tea, but you see press releases all the time. So, if I'm next time I'm ever in Nashville, I'll go. Which
I've been. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, should be the first time I've ever been in Nashville, but that's another story.
Nashville is fantastic. Nashville is. I was there for a conference 3 or 4 years ago, and Nashville is one of my favorite cities in the U.S. it's just an incredible place to go. But there was a Hall of Fame there, so you knew I had to go see it.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I'm from Massachusetts. We didn't have a country station until probably a few years ago. It's just not a thing. But it was just great going there and seeing all the Willie Nelson and Johnny Cash and Dolly Parton and like all the people who I knew, plus finding out about some people I knew nothing about, and getting into it. I have to say the Country Hall is really, really well done.
So in Boston, when they announce a song by Boxcar Willie, is it they say Boxcar Willie?
First of all, that sentence has never actually occurred. But second, it would be Boxcar Willie. Yeah. So
I don't know how that was any different than what I said. Clearly, it was.
No.
I insulted your Bostonian principles.
I was agreeing with you.
Okay.
You're pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
like I said, I grew up there. My mom's an English teacher from Illinois, so anytime I said "wicked," I got the look of death. But I'm much better at the Kennedy accent than the Boston accent. So.
Chowda.
It's a era. Next up on the this here radio station will be Boxcar Willie. So Mayor Quimby is Joe Quimby is a very good Kennedy cousin.
Diamond Joe.
Diamond Joe.
So you got time for one more question?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's something that I was originally going to talk about before, but I didn't put it on the docket. But I think we've gone through this a little bit quicker than I thought, and I really wanted your take on this. I read something in the New York Post, and the piece was talking about Bob Bourne, Bob Nystrom, players who were in the Islanders dynasty that will never get into the Hockey Hall of Fame. And so this guy was trying to, and I forget the name of the journalist, so my apologies to him. But he was sort of promoting the idea of having teams in the Hockey Hall of Fame. I personally hate it. I know they do that in the Basketball Hall of Fame, and it doesn't really make a whole lot of difference other than those people who were in it, who were on those teams. He used also as reference the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame, but that's a different animal, and that's more promoting big moments in the history of that sport for that country.
Right.
I'm against what he proposes. I get his point, but I hate the idea.
Here's my question.
Mm-hmm.
If we put on all the Islanders or teams, or I guess the Islanders won 4 in a row there, are we putting each individual team on? Because then other people get left out. So if we're doing each individual team.
He didn't say.
And if we're putting the Islanders in, doesn't that basically mean that every Canadian who ever played from like 1950 through 1969 has to be in the Hall of Fame?
He kind of left that out.
I mean, that's the door you're opening. We already have half of the Canadians in the Hall of Fame. And I'm not saying that in any sort of salty manner as a Bruins fan. But there's just like all those teams are super well represented. And yeah, there's some great players on any team who are never going to get in for one reason or another. I mean, as a Patriots fan, it drives me crazy how many of the teams the Patriots beat are going to have over the last 20 years, got way more Hall of Famers than the Patriots are out of this dynasty. I mean, I love Teddy Bruschi more than anything. Teddy Bruschi is my second favorite Patriot of all time, behind Brady, because we're required to have Brady. But Teddy Bruschi is never going to sniff the Hall of Fame, even though he was the heart and soul of that first dynasty. Mm-hmm. Like, he was Mr. Patriot. He went to 4 Super Bowls, won 3 of them, survived a stroke, and is basically probably the most beloved retired guy in Boston, at least on the young side right now. I mean, Russell is still probably number 1, but Orr's around too. But in terms of guys who retired in the last few years, it's Bruschi and David Ortiz. So, but he's never getting in. But it sucks for me as a Patriots fan that he's never getting in. But that doesn't mean he necessarily deserves to be there. If Bossy is in, other guys on the main guys those teams are in, it's silly to try and put like the backup goaltender in just because he happened to be on the team.
Yeah, I think the way he wrote that was anyone who was with the team for all 4 of those years, and I think he singled out 16 players. So then essentially now you're going into the thing where you've got double inductees, which then raises all sorts of interesting questions. And either way, I think we both agree it completely waters it down. He referenced two other teams, the U.S. hockey team 1980 and also the Soviet Red Army. Conveniently left out Team Canada Summit Series 1972. But that's what I'm here for, to remind people.
Canada plays hockey?
Yeah, we're pretty good at it.
Yeah.
Not myself personally. But yeah. So I mean, it's one of those things. It's not even celebrated that much in like when the U.S. Dream Team went for the '92 Dream Team in basketball. Nobody paid attention.
Right.
So if you're and who did that put in? So Christian Laettner's in the Basketball Hall of Fame, not for his college accomplishments, but he's in for his mop-up work. In an 80-point win over Angola.
Hey, when in high school we had a really bad team in our league, and because of that, in soccer, I got to play the whole game, and we dominated the game because they rested all the best players, and I got college scholarship offers off of that. So I'll let you know, I could have gone to Muhlenberg College on the full ride if I wanted to. But that didn't make me a good soccer player. So, yeah. I mean, I don't know what else we have to say. I think we both just agree it's dumb.
All right, so we'll leave at one point. If they ever went that route, and let's hope they never do, what would be the team you'd put in first?
That's interesting. I mean, those 50s Canadian teams are ridiculous. I know Toronto would clearly be clamoring for the 67 Maple Leafs. I mean, the team that stands out the most probably of my lifetime in terms of that was a team was the 94 Rangers.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not sure whether that was just because they broke such a long curse and Messier leading that team and everything, or it was actually that team was that good. The Oilers teams of Gretzky and Curry and Coffey and those guys, those teams were fantastic. I don't know. Where would you start?
I go international, and it's 1A and 1B. 1980 USA Olympic hockey team with the most incredible upset of all time. And and that's still really, I think, a huge springboard for U.S. hockey. And then in '72, the Canada team in the Summit Series, which for us helped sort of cement us as a country, because sports will do that. And that was huge. And then third, the Red Army, because you need the villain, you need Drago.
Right, but I don't think that's what I thought the question was. I thought we were talking NHL teams.
Oh, I just meant team, period.
Oh, okay. Well, go do it the other way. What NHL team are you taking? Because that's what I thought the question was.
Okay, so this guy put it as a dynasty. So if I were to sort of look at it as a dynasty, it'd be the Oilers dynasty of the 80s.
Okay.
And all that really does, though, in terms of who that would add, Kevin Lowe, I think, is one of the biggest names that would have been part of it. Who isn't a Hall of Famer, probably shouldn't be. Pretty good player, though. Really good defenseman.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it'd be those Oilers. They changed, better for worse. They changed that. In some ways, I think, in terms of just fun to watch, although I don't know what that represents in hockey, the Broad Street Bullies of the 70s.
Yeah. Okay. The Broad Street Bullies, the Phillies, the Flyer teams are an interesting one. How do you feel about the early 70s Bruins teams?
I think there's a lot there. I mean, You could build a whole wing just for Bobby Orr and just that great statue. Just some score of just scoring against was it St. Louis, I believe?
Yeah, the Blues. So I mean, that's the one sports thing I have hanging in my house is the picture of Bobby Orr flying through the air. My sister actually got it signed to me, saying, "Hey, Evan, good luck and everything." Unfortunately, it says that I never actually met the man, but that's still one of the coolest things I own. So.
Also, was signed by Bobby Bonilla, not Bobby Orr.
Well, I mean, I do have to pay him every July 1st for it. So.
Nice. All right, so I'm sure we'll got some things will always come up for next week. And Evan, as always, it's been a pleasure. Hopefully, we can go back on the Thursday unless there's another D&D show.
There should be another D&D show for a while, but yeah, next Thursday we should be good.
Well,
and who knows? Maybe we talk about a new MLS home.
That could be. Well, MLS that's starting up now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's starting now, and this is their 25th season. And I kind of feel if you've been around, you can't really start a Hall of Fame until you've been around for at least 25 years. I feel like you need at least that much time to start.
I'd agree.
So I feel they can at least start talking about it. And if the EPL is going to do it, I don't see why MLS wouldn't. So
why not? Why not indeed? And you know, hats off to MLS. There was a lot of people who were doubting that at the beginning, and here they are, a strong number 5.
I'm not sure they're number 5. I think NASCAR in large portions of this country is still the 5th sport.
Think so?
But they are a strong number 6. Yeah, I think NASCAR. I'd have to look at the ratings, but my guess is NASCAR ratings dwarf MLS ratings.
Okay.
But of course, but in NASCAR, there's only one event every week, and in MLS, they're spread out all over the country. So that's a little. You'd have to kind of compile it to see what it is. But yeah, I'd say NASCAR's 5, but the soccer is closing in. Although the MLS said a couple of days ago that they expect to overtake baseball as the 4th sport shortly. So we'll see.
I wouldn't even put baseball as number 4 in the U.S. Where do they have hockey then?
Yeah, well, I don't know. That I don't know. Yeah, but yeah. I mean, it's clearly football, basketball, 1, 2, and then there's a big skip down to 3, which I still think is baseball, and 4 being hockey. So. And 27 being curling.
Curling.
Yeah, I have a shirt that says "Still young enough to be a professional curler." I wear it a fairly regular basis. So.
I told you I used to actually I interviewed her for the show. A friend of mine I used to work with, who was just like 1 stone away from making the Olympics.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Actually, I would have brought this up. I started taking karate, and my karate instructor and her sister actually had to battle each other out in Colorado Springs about a month ago. They both won their divisions, but there are more weight divisions in U.S. karate than there are in international karate. So they had to fight each other after they won their divisions. And her older sister by year 1. Her older sister is going to a tournament in Paris in May, and if she finishes the top 3 in that, she'll make the U.S. national karate team, the first one ever to go to the Olympics, because karate's going to the Olympics for the first time this year. So,
providing that there is an Olympics this year.
Providing there's an Olympics, but you know, if the stock market is any indication, everything's fine.
Well, Trump says everything's going to be fine. There's nothing to worry about, so I believe him.
It's all a hoax, but I mean, and the market agrees. It only dropped 2,600 points this week. So.
Well, that's it. I mean, once it gets to 5,000, then sell.
Yeah, well, I mean, it almost did worse. It was down 1,000 points today with 15 minutes remaining. In the last 15 minutes, it rallied up 700 points somehow. So otherwise, we'd be like over 3,000 lost in a week, basically 10% of the market in a week. So, yeah.
Yeah.
It's an interesting time outside the islands.
Beyond this 30, yeah, because when I drive across the country, it takes me a half hour. Just putting it in that perspective.
Yeah. A half hour barely gets me to the next town out here in Illinois with how big everything is. So.
Nice. All right. Well, so thanks again, and we'll chat soon.
Take care, man.
Right.
Bye.
Bye.